Life is unpredictable, but preparing for the unexpected shouldn't be. Take ownership of your life planning with Policy Genius to help your loved ones have a financial safety net in case something happens to you. They offer life insurance policies starting at just $276 a year for $1 million in coverage. Don't wait for life to make other plans. Protect your family today. Head to policygenius.com. That's policygenius.com.
Hello and welcome to Japan Explained. Japan meets West is probably my favorite topic of all time. Talking about Paris visits to Japan reminded me of this, so I decided to introduce you to some of the culinary innovations that came to Japan shortly afterwards. And while there were many, one stands out. It's curry rice. Or should I say, kare rice? Ranking far higher on the popularity scale than sushi or tempura, curry rice, along with ramen, is one of Japan's national dishes, kokuminshoku, and a favorite soul food of the masses. The average Japanese eats curry 70 times a year. That's at least once a week. So, we have to talk about it. Every Japanese supermarket has a large selection of curry. You eat it in restaurants for lunch, you eat it when you visit friends, you bring home regional curry as a souvenir from a trip. And if you happen to go to school in Japan, curry is a standard part of your school lunch. You grow up eating curry and you grow up loving it. Wasn't to like, honestly. Hot, thick, steaming curry on a bed of freshly cooked rice is not only delicious, it's cheap, easy to make, and infinitely adaptable. Yet, it had been less than 150 years since the first curry recipe appeared in Japanese cookbook. So let's see what happened in those 150 years and how a foreign dish has become so deeply Japanese. It is said that curry first came to Japan via the port of Yokohama in 1859. But this turned out to be a rather useless fact for our story because nothing happened. It was brought by foreigners and eaten by foreigners, just so happened to be on Japanese land. A year later, we see the word curry in a dictionary called Sotei Kaetsugo, written by Fukuzawa Yukichi. But this is a miss for us again, as Fukuzawa didn't even compile the dictionary himself, but simply added a Japanese translation to the existing Anglo-Chinese dictionary he had acquired in America. Although he probably never saw or ate curry himself, he suggests the first Japanese reading for the word, koruri. In 1864, we finally have a diary entry about curry. It was made by a man called Iwamatsu Taro, a member of an educational mission to Europe. While at sea, he saw another person on the ship eating curry with his hands. He found it unpleasant and dirty, and for that mentioned it in his diary. The first Japanese person to actually taste curry may have been Yamakawa Kenjiro. Like Iwamatsu, he also went to study abroad in 1871, but had great difficulty eating Western food. His doctor urged him to try harder, and one day Yamakawa tried to eat curry. He found it disgusting and finished only the rice. While it's hard to say whether Yamakawa was the first Japanese to try curry or just the first to complain about it, the pattern is clear. Curry is eaten either on the ship or abroad. It hasn't quite arrived in Japan yet. The story of a fussy eater Yamakawa, however, had an unexpected sequel. After returning to Japan, he continued his academic career and later became the first president of Kyushu University. To commemorate this, the university now sells Yamakawa curry, a special recipe from a school canteen and a favorite dish of the students, created in an attempt to make a curry that even the picky Yamakawa would like. But while these earlier curry tales are fun, none of them brings us any closer to the answer. So let's try a different angle. One thing seems clear. Curry came to Japan from England. Sounds reasonable. India was a British colony, and curry had been popular in Britain since the 18th century. In 1872, a recipe for raisu curry was published in a Handbook of Western Cuisine, or Seiyurori Shinan. The list of ingredients includes leek, ginger, garlic, butter, prawns, sea bream, oysters, chicken, frog, wheat flour, and curry powder. Just where does the frog come from? Anyway, it doesn't seem that this particular recipe became popular. Later that year, another cookbook was published, a book of Western cuisine, Seiyuroritsu, presented a more palatable recipe mentioning beef, chicken, leek, apple, wheat flour, eggplant, yuzu, and curry powder. It seems to have been borrowed and slightly adapted from a certain British cookbook, Mrs. Beeton's Book of Household Management, except that it was not a curry recipe, but one for curried chicken or fowl. And although I can see the difference between the two, Mrs. Beeton and other British writers of the time don't add flour to their curry recipes. In 1877, the Fugetsudo restaurant in Tokyo was the first to serve curry to a Japanese public. And I'd like to say that's how the Japanese discovered their love for curry and started cooking it all the time, but no, not even close. A portion of curry at Fugetsudo cost 8 sen, whereas just for over 1 sen, you could go to a public bathhouse or eat a generous portion of soba noodles. Everything foreign was new and interesting, but expensive, and curry at Fugetsudo was a luxury food for the rich. But while we'll soon see how the price is gradually coming down, let's first understand what created the demand for curry in Japan in the first place. And for that, we have to thank the Japanese Navy. In 1870, an imperial decree established that Britain's Royal Navy should serve as the model for the development of the Japanese Navy, and 3 years later, a British naval mission arrived in Japan to establish British traditions. It seemed that the British were determined to create a miniature copy of the British Navy in Japan, as even the style of uniform, the manners of the officers, and the food were adopted. And so, curry appears as a part of the package on the menu of the Japanese Naval School. The mission stayed in Japan until 1879. Just as it was leaving, medical officer Takaki Kanehiro returned to Japan after 5 years of study in England. In 1883, Takaki learned of a Japanese training mission to Hawaii, which suffered badly from beriberi. Out of 376 men, 169 came down with the disease and 25 sadly died. Why does the Japanese Navy suffer from beriberi while the almost identical British Navy does not? And why did beriberi affect only the lower ranks of the crew and not the officers? Takaki suggested that the problem might lie in the diet. While the officers enjoyed a varied diet, the crew were often lured to the Navy by the promise of unlimited free rice. As they had to pay for all other foods, they eat rice and little else in order to send more money home. Takaki asked for an experiment. In 1884, another mission left Japan along exactly the same route. This time, however, all the crew were fed a more Western diet of barley, meat, and vegetables, and it seemed that curry was one of the dishes on the menu. At the time, eating meat was still rare in Japan, and curry was used to mask the meaty smell many found unpleasant. The experiment ended with tremendous success. Of the 333 crew members, only 14 contracted beriberi, and no one died. It convinced the Imperial Japanese Navy that poor diet was the main factor in beriberi, and the disease was soon eliminated from the fleet. The Japanese army, on the other hand, continued to believe that beriberi was an infectious disease and rejected any evidence of the contrary. 20 years later, this led to the sad consequence that 27,000 soldiers died of beriberi during the Russo-Japanese War, compared to 47,000 lost in combat. But when will curry finally become an inseparable part of the Japanese Navy, as we are constantly led to believe? Unfortunately, nobody knows for sure, but it seems to have happened in the early 20th century, as the oldest surviving reference to naval curry is in the 1908 manual Kaigun Kappojutsu Sankosho. It includes kare raisu in its recipe section, suggesting that by this time it was widespread enough to be included in a textbook for naval cooks. A simple recipe calls for beef or chicken, carrots, onions, potatoes, salt, curry powder, wheat flour, beef fat, and rice. The cooks were supposed to melt the beef fat in the pan, mix in the wheat flour until golden brown, add the curry powder, dilute the mixture with the stock, add the diced meat and vegetables, and simmer over a low fire. Add salt at the end and serve with cooked rice. It is also suggested to serve this dish together with pickled gherkins or chutney. Finally we found the recipe for a classic Japanese curry. But let me say something here. By this time, the Japanese Navy was no longer in favor of the British Navy. For a while, it liked a French one, and then in the early 1900s, it decided it had learned enough and it was time to go its own way. I suppose that's how the curry recipe changed from a soupy British one to a more stewy French one, the preparation of which started with turning beef fat and flour into a roux. Curry continues to be on the Japanese Navy's menu and becomes quite popular in the 1930s, with a Navy cookbook published in 1932 featuring many variations of the dish. But just when I was ready to believe in a beautiful bond between the Japanese Navy and curry, I was disillusioned by Takamori Naofumi, a Japanese naval food historian. Every documentary about Japanese curry mentions that Friday, the last working day of the week, is Curry Day in the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Forces, and this tradition goes back more than 100 years. According to Takamori, we have all been lied to all this time. It seems that the Japanese Navy never had a strict meal plan, and in the beginning the self-defense forces didn't have one either. And Friday was not even the last working day until the 1980s, when JSDF adopted the 5-day week. So, while it's a tradition now, it's barely 40 years old. Not bad, but the famous Yokosuka naval curry has lost a good deal of its charm for me. Now, it's time to get back to the general public. In the same early 20th century that curry became popular in the Navy, it also began to spread to the general population. After completing their service, Marines would return home and share their favorite recipes. It seems that the popularity of the dish began to grow as in 1905, Imamura Yahei, the second-generation owner of a medical ingredients shop Yamatoya in Osaka, made the first Japanese-made curry powder called hachikare. The company is still going strong today and produces curry, other seasonings and sauces under the name Hachishokuhin. A year later, a magazine called Katei no Tomo presented its readers with a recipe similar to the one we've seen before. It also contains beef, carrots, onions, and potatoes. Japan had its own version of the Roaring Twenties. And just as cafe girls were threatening the livelihood of geishas, fashionable young people were choosing to eat foreign dishes rather than boring Japanese ones, and curry restaurants were growing in popularity. After the Great Counter-Earthquake of 1923, many simple eateries reopened with some curry dishes, such as kare nanban or kare udon on the menu. And while curry was now eaten by the working class, it was still considered too difficult to cook at home. This changed in 1926, when a company called House mixed curry powder, flour, fat, and flavorings to produce Japan's first instant curry product. In 1929, the Hankyu department store in Osaka began serving affordable curry with rice. At 20 sen, half the price charged by other restaurants, more than 10,000 people a day came there to eat curry. Just 2 years later, the popularity of curry would even lead to an international diplomatic incident. The British brand, Cross & Blackwell, was known in Japan for its high-quality curry powder, but it was expensive and Japanese counterfeits appeared on the market, sometimes adding extenders or sometimes even replacing the contents of original jar with a domestically produced powder. A number of arrests eventually calmed the British, but as for the Japanese public, they understood that the knockoffs were not that different from the original, so why should they pay more? and they switched to buying cheaper, domestically made curry powder. During the Second World War, curry was part of the Japanese army's rations, so production for civilians was discontinued. After the war, however, 1954 would be considered the year of the curry revolution. In that year, S&B Foods launched a new product, instant curry roux. The wheat flour and curry powder were already pre-cooked and pre-mixed together with vegetable puree, fats and flavorings. Now, anyone could make curry at home. Easy to use and versatile, curry roux was an instant hit. By the end of the 1950s, there was a real advertising battle between the various curry makers. TV and radio ads, department store tasting stations, and curry-focused cooking classes. Every step the Japanese housewife took reminded her of curry. And it was a battle worth fighting. In the first 10 years, production of curry roux quadrupled to more than 80,000 tons a year. In 1960, Ezaki Glico Company, which we all know for its confectionery, applied chocolate bar manufacturing technology to the curry block and launched Glico One Touch Curry Roux, which gave curry blocks their distinctive shape. In 1963, House Foods introduced a curry mix called Vermont curry. Containing apple concentrate and honey, it was much milder and sweeter than other mixes and helped to change the perception that curry was too spicy for children. Kare Raisu appeared on school menus and remained the most popular dish on the national school lunch menu for at least 3 decades. Then, in the late 1960s, time came for another curry revolution. One company in Tokushima Prefecture was too late to enter the curry business. Desperate to find their place in the market, they turned to technology. At the time, retort sterilization was widely used to preserve canned and bottled foods. But recently, the technology of a retort pouch has been invented in America as a way to store in military supplies. It seemed like a great opportunity, so the company began trials to find the optimum temperature, pressure, and time. Thousands of exploded pouches later, they had found the optimum numbers. In 1968, Otsuka's Bon Kare went on sale in Kansai region. This made Japanese curry the world's first consumer product in a retort pouch. The sales strategy was to associate the food of Western origin with the home cooking of Japanese mothers. And it was a success. The image of a packet of curry and a woman in kimono became iconic. Within 5 years of launching the product, the company was selling 100 million packets a year. And now, nothing could stop curry from becoming the favorite food of the Japanese. In 1972, curry with different levels of spiciness appeared, and in 1975, a Power Ranger-type TV show featured the character Kirenja, who loved curry. Somehow, it became a trend, and a few other multi-hero shows made loving curry a feature of a character dressed in yellow. Then, in 1978, Japan's most famous curry chain Curry House Kokuichi Banya opened its first shop in Aichi Prefecture. In 1982, the 22nd of January was established as a curry day in primary and middle schools. 10 years later, in 1992, Japanese astronaut Mori Mamoru brought curry pouches aboard the space shuttle. It proved popular, and now Japanese curry is an officially recognized space food. This brings us to today, when Japanese consumers can enjoy more than 100 curry roux products and around 1,500 different varieties of curry in retort pouches. Some of them replicate the taste of famous restaurants, while others feature regional specialties or premium ingredients such as Kobe beef. Because they don't need refrigeration, they are also popular as emergency food rations. In response to the increased demand for such items after the March 11 earthquake, both Ezaki Glico and House have introduced ready-to-eat curries that don't need to be reheated to be tasty. The boiling back curry reflects Japan's modern lifestyle and eating habits. Gone are the home-cooked meals for the whole family. Now everyone is on their own. Single-person households, families with busy incompatible schedules. Just take a bag, boil it, pour over the rice and noodles and enjoy. It's delicious, but a bit sad at the same time. Believe me, I ate well over 100 of them in my first year in Japan. On the positive side, there is another trend. Some authors suggest that curry may prevent aging and help with weight loss. There is even a study suggesting that a component of curry, called curcumin, may improve memory and help against Alzheimer's disease. New, healthy recipes are encouraging home cooks to play with curry, adding new spices to a familiar dish and turning it into something to look forward to. Now that you know the short but eventful story of Japanese curry, let's look at the options you have when it comes to cooking or ordering one. Firstly, there is curry rice or kare rice. It's all clear here. Then there is dry curry. Start with your classic curry, but cook it until all the ingredients turn into a thick paste. Pour over rice and enjoy. Another simple option is yakikare. Take a dish suitable for an oven, place rice on it, cover it with curry, and top with a generous layer of grated cheese. Bake, remove from the oven, and again. The least attractive dish on this list is mazekare. In 1910, a restaurant called Jiyuken opened in Osaka. The owner thought that since most customers mix curry with rice before eating, it might be a good idea to pre-mix it before serving. Topped with raw egg and Worcester sauce, it soon became a specialty of the restaurant, and in the 1940s became known throughout the country thanks to the novel Meoto Zenzai, written by Oda Sakunosuke. Next up is the black curry. Not something you'd cook at home. The recipe calls for fatty beef and onions to be simmered in stock and curry paste for 2-3 days until they turn into a delicious black paste. Speaking of thick, delicious curry, the city of Kanazawa comes to mind. Kanazawa curry not only tastes different, it looks different. Served on a stainless steel plate, topped with a fried cutlet and a pile of shredded cabbage, the dish has left its hometown to capture the hearts of curry lovers across Japan. A few chain restaurants specialize in serving it, the most famous and easiest to find being Gogo Curry, with a trademark gorilla on a yellow background. The last in this list to be eaten with rice is soup curry. The dish originated in Hokkaido and is known for its chunky pieces of fried meat and vegetables and boiled egg. Soup curry is prepared without a roux, and the contrast between the separately roasted or fried ingredients and the spicy yet light soup made it an instant hit in the early 2000s. Turning to noodles, kare udon is king here. The classic recipe calls for thick wheat noodles served in a broth of curry powder mixed with soy sauce-based stock. But some places serve udon with a classic curry, so that's an option too. The next one is a bit tricky, and judging by the number of articles written about it, Japanese people are often confused about it too. The dish is called kare nanban, often referred to as kare soba. And the problem starts when you see these two dishes next to each other on the menu. The trick is that nowadays kare nanban can be served with either soba or udon noodles. In the beginning, however, it all started with soba. Nanban in the name of Japanese dishes simply stands for leek, so kare nanban means soba with curry and leek, while kare soba means soba with curry and maybe some other vegetables, but no leek. Let's finish this list with one of my personal favorites, karepan. Born in 1927 in a small Tokyo bakery and originally called Yoshoku-pan, Western food bread, it was soon renamed and became one of the most popular Japanese snacks. Now, I was going to end this episode with a classic curry recipe that you could try at home, but since it hasn't changed much over the last 100 years, I won't repeat it here. Feel free to choose between stirring a homemade roux for 30 to 60 minutes or buying a ready-made curry block. Instead, I'd like to remind you that curry is one of the comfort foods of the Japanese. That's why families don't just make a classic recipe every time, but add their own secret ingredients. It could be ketchup, Worcester sauce, cream, butter, grated garlic, anything you like. Some people even add strawberries, jam, chocolate, instant coffee or cola. So, have fun the next time you decide to make curry. Let me know your secret ingredients if you have any, and remember, I'm always happy to see you on japanexplained.com or among my Patreon members. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Your business is one of a kind, so your website should be too. With Wix, it's easy, almost too easy, to create a website that's perfectly yours. Just tell AI what kind of site you want to build or choose from thousands of templates. Change whatever you want, whenever you want, and get everything you need to start running your business your way. No matter what you sell or what you aspire to be, you can do it all yourself on Wix. Go to Wix.com